Right now, more than 1 billion cattle are alive on Earth, raised for a single purpose. In the U.S. alone, roughly 9 billion chickens are slaughtered annually. Add sheep, pigs, goats, rabbits, and deer, and you're looking at massive global industries built entirely around animals that eat plants for a living. Now try to recall the last time a menu offered you lion, wolf, eagle, or shark, outside of the ethically questionable fin soup. Humans have raised and hunted nearly every herbivore on the planet at some point. But predators have almost never been eaten as a staple food, anywhere, at any real scale. What's striking is that cultures with zero contact with one another, different continents, different languages, no shared history, landed on the exact same unwritten rule: eat the plant eaters, leave the hunters alone. On paper, that's odd. A wolf and a cow are both just protein, fat, and muscle. So why did one become dinner across nearly the entire planet, while the other essentially never did? The answer stacks up from several directions at once: energy math, toxic buildup, taste, and biology, disease risk, and finally, culture layering on top of all of it. Start with the energy math. In 1942, ecologist Raymond Lindemann described what's now known as the 10% rule. At each step up a food chain, around 90% of available energy is lost, burned as heat, spent moving, wasted in digestion. Only about a tenth makes it to the next level up. So a field producing 100 pounds worth of plant energy might support maybe 10 pounds of deer. That 10 pounds of deer supports roughly 1 pound of wolf. Put another way, producing a single pound of predator meat requires about 10 pounds of prey animal beneath it. And that 10 pounds of prey required 100 pounds of vegetation to grow in the first place. Predators are structurally the most expensive meat there is to produce. Farming lions for food would essentially mean farming an animal whose entire diet is other farmed animals, layering the cost of raising livestock on top of the cost of raising more livestock to feed it. No society in history has had energy to spare on that scale, and none ever built an economy around it. Then there's what accumulates inside a predator's body. Environmental toxins like mercury, lead, and industrial chemicals don't wash out as they move up a food chain, they build up, a process called biomagnification. A small fish picks up a trace of mercury. A larger fish eats hundreds of those small fish and absorbs it all at once. A shark eating hundreds of those larger fish concentrates it further still. By the top of the chain, an animal has spent its whole life quietly stockpiling the pollution of everything beneath it, which is exactly why doctors advise pregnant women against eating shark, swordfish, or king mackerel. The same mechanism nearly ended the bald eagle in the United States. DDT ran into waterways, was absorbed by algae, concentrated in fish, and concentrated again in eagles that ate the fish. By the 1960s, DDT levels in American apex predators were high enough to thin eggshells until they cracked under a nesting mother's own weight. Nesting pairs in the lower 48 states fell below 1,000 before the pesticide was banned in 1972. This danger isn't a modern discovery either. Arctic sled dogs have instinctively avoided polar bear liver for generations. Human explorers didn't always get the memo. Members of Douglas Mawson's 1911 Antarctic expedition ate husky liver out of desperation and suffered violent headaches, skin peeling off in sheets, and eventual organ failure. The culprit was hypervitaminosis A. Polar bear and husky liver concentrate vitamin A to levels that can be lethal in a single serving. Arctic peoples had known to avoid it long before science explained why. Even setting toxins aside, predator meat is simply harder to eat. Prey animals mostly graze calmly. Predators chase, stalk, and fight for every meal, flooding their muscles with cortisol and adrenaline while burning through the glycogen that normally keeps meat tender at slaughter. What's left is tougher, gamier meat, often carrying a musky edge from testosterone-linked compounds in the tissue. Hunters who've tried mountain lion or wolf tend to agree, survivable in an emergency, but nobody's first choice. Then there's disease. Predators eat the sick, old, and weak members of other species, along with whatever parasites those animals were carrying. Trichinosis, a serious parasitic infection once common in undercooked bear and wild boar, spread specifically through carnivore and scavenger meat. Wildlife biologists have long noted that predator meat carries a far heavier parasite load than meat from herbivores, for exactly this reason. A predator isn't just meat. It's a record of everything that was already wrong with what it ate. None of this makes the rule absolute, but the exceptions prove it rather than break it. Bear meat has appeared in parts of Scandinavia, Russia, and North America for centuries, typically in small portions and cooked thoroughly. Lion meat has occasionally been eaten in parts of Africa during severe famine, when every safer, plant-based option had already run out. In essentially every historical case, predator meat was the last resort, never the first option on the table. Even today, South Africa's legal lion farming industry exists almost entirely to supply lion bones to traditional medicine markets in parts of Asia, not to sell lion meat as food. Conservation groups have criticized the practice for years, and it remains one of the only real attempts anywhere to farm a predator at scale. That it's rare, controversial, and aimed at bones rather than meat only underlines how consistently the rest of the world has avoided this path. And then culture caught up with biology and made the rule official. Leviticus explicitly bans eating birds of prey and clawed carnivores, naming eagles, vultures, and hawks directly. Islamic dietary law draws a near-identical line, prohibiting animals that hunt using fangs or talons. From ancient Israel to the Arabian Peninsula to indigenous hunting traditions across North America, societies with no contact with one another kept arriving at the same invisible boundary. Eat the grazer, spare the hunter. Some anthropologists argue this was never purely about safety. Predators were feared and, in many cultures, revered, carved into totems, worn as headdresses, guarding temple gates. It's difficult to serve dinner out of an animal your culture has turned into a god. So the real answer was never a single reason. It's energy economics stacked on chemical accumulation, stacked on taste and biology, stacked on disease risk, with centuries of culture and symbolism layered on top. Predator meat costs too much energy to produce, carries too much accumulated toxin, tastes worse, spoils the eating experience with disease risk, and, on top of everything else, humanity spent millennia turning the animals at the top of the food chain into symbols rather than meals. Every ecosystem runs on the same quiet arithmetic. Energy shrinks at every step up the chain. Humans didn't invent the rule that predators stay off the plate. We noticed it independently, over and over, in every corner of the world, and built our diets around it.